I think human beings inherently categorize themselves to groups, or they inherently want to find a group of people who are similar to them, because when you have people who are similar to you, they're all up to speed. They all understand where they're coming from because everyone in that group has came from a similar place. And so the wavelengths that they're on just inherently sort of work together. And so understanding this, these groups form, these cliques form of people who are maybe not all the same, but at least are on a similar wavelength. And so you don't have to constantly explain yourself or deal with cultural differences or, deal with gaps between people because there's no gap there. It's just everybody there is on the same page. You don't have to fill anybody in because everyone there already knows what's going on. And that makes social interaction much, much easier because everyone there gets it. If you don't get it, you have to be explained to. And when you explain something to somebody, things get complicated. And no one wants things to be complicated. They all want them to be simple. And so everybody goes into a group. They all go into a tribe. And I think this, dates all the way back to the prehistoric day, or not prehistoric days, what am I talking about? Old humans and old human civilizations when they first started coming up. Because you think about people set themselves within their group, hunter-gatherers, etc., and then they just did that. And that was how they lived. They stayed within that group. And if you did not fit into that group, if you didn't fit into that paradigm of what a human was supposed to be within the eyes of the people within that hunter-gatherer society, you were snuffed out. You died if you couldn't have a group. And so people will kill you, or back then people will kill you, but nowadays you can survive on your own, maybe not very happily, but like back in the day, if you did not fit within somebody's group, it was big trouble for you. You had to adapt yourself to that or just die. And so people get snuffed out in a society that works that way. But nowadays, people, it's not necessarily a life and death situation, but socially it is because we all need people. In one way, biologically, we need friends in the sense that, friends make us happy and social interactions help us and they help us function. But, like, it's not even just on that level. It's also in the sense of surviving. Like, sure, you won't necessarily die, but it'll be a hell of a lot harder of a time to get a job if you don't fit in. It'll be a hell of a lot harder of time to just work your way through the world if you're a complete loner. And so you need to talk to people. You need to adapt yourself. You need to be less honest about what you really like and what you really do because you need to make yourself fit towards those paradigms of what a person should be. And people change themselves because of that. If there's a weird quirk about them, they have it changed. If they have a speech impediment, they go to a speech therapist. If they have a problem with how they look, then they get their hair cut. They get plastic surgery. All of these things happen because the social pressure for them to happen exists. And so on the internet, we meet people. We are able to interact with people from all over the world. And I think this has allowed us to be much more culturally dense, I would say, like much more easy to join tribes that are closer to who we are. Because in your own town, in your own city, there is only so much you can do. There's only so much you can find in terms of people who are similar to you. In the last town that I was living in, I was lucky enough to find someone who watched anime, let alone someone who looks at it in as much depth as I do or watches as many shows as I do. And so meeting the kid who watches Naruto, sure, they were into the same thing that I was in, but I had to adapt myself to be on their level. I had to adapt myself to understand their culture as a fan of Naruto and to be part of their culture if I was going to be able to be in their tribe. And so on the internet, I can find other people who are exactly like me, and I can say, hey, you want to join my tribe? You want to be part of my group? You want to work through the world with each other? And if we're similar, like in the PCP community, like in the Chromasticators and all these different people, they come together. They find themselves in the same place, which in my case was the Procrastinators podcast community. I went to that community and found a lot of people who thought the same way I did because we all watched the same YouTube channel of people who, um, were doing this type of analytical thought. And like, when you go into that community and um, you find these people who are watching the same things. You see people like Digi, they're talking about like, oh yeah, everyone needs to be understood, everything is subjective, and all these different like philosophical ideas. If they're listening to a pundit of those ideas, then they are more likely to have them themselves. And so when you go into a community to discuss those things, likely everyone will be on the same page in that regard at least. And so it's easy to find people who are coming from the same place if you go to that place. And so it's much easier to like create your own group of people who all understand each other and create your own tribe to navigate the world. And I think the internet is great because it allows for that. It allows for people who are different and who stand out, as they would say, like a nail that sticks out of the wall. Instead of just being hammered down by society, it can find other people who are similar to it, and it can grow and foster instead of just being hammered down. And so I think the way things have progressed with technology has helped for that a lot. People can express themselves and truly be individuals because there are other people that are like them out there. It's just that those people are states or even countries away, and now we just have the power to create our own tribes with them despite that distance. The internet makes everything so much closer, it alleviates that distance. And so, when you get the money saved up, all you have to do is alleviate the physical distance yourself, but the emotional and intellectual distance has already been alleviated by the existence of the internet. The communication is there. So those tribes can exist, and those people can be pretty happy talking to each other. That's really all you need, is just find people who are similar to you. And the internet is so good because it allows for what would originally have you killed in, primal society now allows you to thrive and to flourish. And so I really like that.